Inwards, outwards. Inwards, outwards. Hello, IWOW. Beautiful people, welcome. So wonderful to have you here at Deb's Art Space in beautiful downtown Housatonic. This is just wonderful, you're all here. Okay, so if it happens to be the first time, and you just happen to wander in off the street, do not worry. Everyone here will support you, love you, and enjoy your presentation. Okay, so here's the rundown. Turn off your cell phones, please. There is a suggested $5 donation. If you can do that, great. If you could do less, whatever, it's fine. You may be photographed. That man right there. For TV, baby. If you wish not to be photographed, please just tell the host, because I have 3 other hosts helping me out tonight. And we will ask the gentleman to shut off the camera. Let's see. Oh, the 5-minute rule. Please remember to end on time, if at all possible. Because please be sensitive to the next performer. Any time you take away comes off of their 5 minutes. I want to thank the Center for Peace Through Culture for the use of tonight's space. I want to tell you that if you would like to host, please contact Denise. The IWOW Now deadline, the piece that Susue Kaufman puts up every other month, the deadline is September 15th. And we'll do more announcements at the end. Before I introduce the first guest, I just wanted to say tonight's theme is In a Perfect World. In a perfect world, my children would live on the East Coast, and I wouldn't have to move to be near them. Yeah. Eleanor Windman. Is she in the house? Eleanor. In a perfect world, she would have gotten here by now. It's like 10 after 7. So she's out. Okay, Eleanor, we're scratching you, baby. I heard Eileen Marcus is not making it. Such a talented woman. I would have loved to have heard her. She's not here. All right. The first person tonight is just an unusually talented man, a multifaceted artist. Please join me in welcoming Ted Phelps.
Hey, very kind, Frank. 4 years ago, I wrote a piece called A Little Stitching. This is 4 years later, and The Perfect World it still resonates even worse with a couple lines that you'll hear in this. Just to say. The other thing I said at the time is, this was on radio, no problem, but it's not. So you're looking at me, don't think of me, think of an African person, clearly from Africa, ambiguous gender, okay? Wearing a suit. First person story, that's why I want to say that. It was closing night of the annual conference on emerging technologies in emerging medicine. Emergency medicine. My ears were still ringing with the keynote. when the speaker had given an impassioned plea for us, the rural and inner city healthcare workers, to lead the country in a healing dialogue. She had said, "The barriers of left and right are gutting the country from neck to crotch like a butchered deer. This year will be seen as the antebellum of the Second Civil War if something doesn't change." Well, yeah, we see it every night. Wounds of the hate fights. And every night it's at least one white guy wheeled into ER on his back, bleeding out, falls asleep in my arms like I'm his mama, trusting we can stitch him back to good enough. Sweet Jesus. Believing that we will. Indians, blacks, Chinese, queers in white coats, and we do. We stitch them up. That's our healing dialogue. This conference doesn't really help. I left my buddies at the bar and went out for a walk down Cordon Place. I was still in my powder blue ribbed silk suit with matching bow tie. The October night under southern skies felt like meditation. About a mile down the road, I looked into the open doorway of a bar and pizza place. I had heard of it. Someone was singing "Happy Birthday." I stepped in. The bartender was bringing over a small cake with one candle and waved me to join in a second round of the song. It was a guy and two gals in a clutter of pizza crusts and beers. The birthday girl was being crunched a bit too tight to the man, and the one across the table was loving the song as much as I was. Anyway, why this is a story is the birthday girl looked up at me and said, "Thank you for that, stranger. You're quite the singer." And then, "Come over here a sec, honey. Are you famous? Should we know you?" She leaned across the table to what I could now see was maybe her sister and whispered loud enough I could hear, "Didn't we see her, on late night or up at Branson that time?" Oh no, I tapped my dinner jacket. This thing is just a costume. It's what you wear at the type of gig I was at, up at the Henry. Her guy stood up and squeezed my shoulder pretty hard and pulled over a seat and got me a glass and filled it from the pitcher. "The Henry, eh? Nice place. What do you go as, buddy?" They call me Scott. I'm from L.A. Well, that's where I work." The birthday girl reached over to shake my hand. "Hi there, Scott from L.A. I'm Lorinda from 43 Dry Cleaning." Well, anyway, that's where I work. They laughed. "And I'm just Bobby," her man said, giving me at last the look I would expect. Powder blue suit, Senegal black, head shaved like a monk or nun. He called to the barman, "Nick, get him a small pizza." Then to me, "What do you like, Scott from L.A.?" "Thick crust margarita with broccoli if they have it. Otherwise, Nick, 12-inch plain with something green on top. He's from L.A." "Bobby," Lorinda whispered, winking at me, "look again. Our Scott is maybe a woman." I helped her out and said the truth. "Most days, yes." We talked until closing. First, my work in ER and the nightly fights. They have it all around there, they told me. That got us into school shootings and guns, how you need them even more now, and then it was Blue Lives Matter. I patted my blue Senegal face and thanked them for caring. And they agreed it would help if we said Blue Lives also matter, or Black Lives. We got around to Jesus because of Cheryl's cleavage, inked with a reddish Jesus. I said, "I like the red letters too, Jesus' words. We need that." Cheryl pulled back one side of her jean shirt with Mark 12:31 in a red arc over the nipple. She stroked herself there, saying, "That's where he says, 'Love thy neighbor.' And you are right to say it, honey. We need that." "Close it up, Cheryl," Bobby said, and stood up, ending the party. Their trucks were parked across the street. "We'll take you back, Scotty. You're way too tasty to be out walking alone. Lori, get in the back." In the hotel drop-off, Lori got out with me and raised her arms in a hug. We held each other in the special way that pretty much only women can, women with each other. "You're really fine, Lori," I said into her ear. "Stay safe." "You too, honey," she said. I watched the truck wait at the red light and then pass into the night. Be safe, guys.
That's a very talented and funny man. Thank you, Ted. You never fail to disappoint. Very nice. Okay. I wanted to mention, when you come up, if you feel like writing, please do. The board is yours.
Where's the chalk?
Plenty of chalk. Different colors, pinks and greens and blues and reds. Please, use it. The next person up is a storyteller. She's a dear friend. She's formerly a goddess, now a mother to Gabriel. Let's hear it for Kristin Grippo.
Oh, what an introduction. Can you hear me? I don't. No? I'll just. Okay, I can just talk loud. This is really short, so I'll take some of the time. Well, just it's so good to be here. It's so good to be here again. Yeah. Yeah. And I, like you all, am just like bursting with love and sadness to say goodbye to our friends Frank and Susie, who are going to be closer to their grandchildren, which we completely understand. And I can't even really express what a gift you've both been. Where's Frank? I'm trying to see him. Okay. Both of them, as you know, like just as friends, as mentors, as inspiration to all of us here. It's going to be a huge hole without y'all. But in the spirit of Deb, like the holes just get filled with that much more love, right? So we're gonna carry on feeling your presence, missing you. They've like made us laugh and weep and everything in between. And I really, I'm honored to have shared the stage with you and to call you my friends. Thank you. Yeah. And this is a prayer to Ginger from Gilligan's Island. You, with your sultry red lips and orange bouffant, sequined scarlet evening gown, part of an enviably fabulous and improbable desert island wardrobe. Sure, Marianne was cute in that mundane sort of way that blue and white gingham and pigtails evokes. But you, Ginger, always glamorous, ever ensconced in just the right ensemble, towering over not only lanky Gilligan, but also selfish Mr. Howell and the handsome professor to boot. No wonder they were all in love with you. So the question is, was I? What I know is that you are an archetype for me. Your voluptuous and wild holiness in the company of other childhood television saints. Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, naturally, and the lithe and fierce animated Chitara, my favorite of all the Thundercats. Ginger, together with these goddess guides, you shaped my ideas of femininity, punctuated my psyche with perhaps a primal attraction that never quite left me. I'm not sure even now if I wanted you or wanted to be you, but I don't think it matters. As I envision you now, your long eyelashes batting away coyly, I offer this prayer of gratitude for your unabashed, sexy wildness. You enchant me. Amen. So I get to be, Frankie let me be the host for the next two folks. Didn't stay up here now. Three. Three folks. So, great. So, it is, again, like what a joy and a pleasure to introduce my dear friend, Susue Kaufman.
Okay? When we returned to this holy ground last month, I was absolutely convinced that the dimensions of the room had changed, that the actual interior architecture was different. I remembered the stage being very high off the ground, a frightening climb up an Everest of defenselessness and exposure. In the old days, I needed assistance mounting the stage high up in Alpine Housatonic. It had a Victorian damsel in distress quality, the way I extended my hand to Frank, sometimes to Ted, to help me up on the stage. In the dizzying moment after I read, I would need a helping hand to dismount and return to the safety of the ground level where people were reacting to whatever I had read. It was a double V moment, a moment of maximum vertigo and vulnerability. Suddenly, last month, the stage was only modestly elevated. I no longer felt like I was teetering high above the crowd. It reminded me of the disorienting optical illusion of returning to grade school for a visit as an adult. The oak desks, complete with inkwells and wrought iron frames bolted to the floor, were so tiny, child-sized. The classrooms and hallways were proportionately designed for children learning that I before E thing. In adult reality, nothing about school seemed quite so imposing. I was a passably confident grown-up, wandering as a tourist in childhood, just as I'm returning tonight to this art space as an experienced reader. Neither the stakes nor the stage are as high as I remember. I grew up as a writer on this stage. Breshit, in the beginning, every month would be a contest between my comedy routine, a brittle, rapid-fire slice of cleverness out of Fran Lebowitz with an edge of the nasty, and my seeking, philosophical song and dance, dripping with meaning. One month, I'd come on like a popcorn machine, bombarding the audience with words. The next month, I'd whistle harmlessly, a tea kettle on simmer. If I took the stand-up route, I'd be afraid the audience, that's you, my friends, would think I was shallow and just a wee bit aggressive. If I went contemplative at the fork, I ran the risk of sounding maudlin and self-important. Why does she always talk about death? What's wrong with her? I imagined. What's her problem? I'm pleased to report that I figured out a way that I couldn't possibly win. Whichever direction I followed, there were demons lying in wait. I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out who I was. This all changed right here, over time, over the years of risky business. There was no great awakening, no eye-wow conversion experience with uncontrollable shaking and speaking in tongues where I saw the light. It was a slow softening, a gradual opening of the heart, as I learned to accept and appreciate all the offerings of this communion, even my own. There's a story the Hasidim tell about Reb Zusha. So Reb Zusha was lying on his deathbed, still talking about death all the time, surrounded by his disciples. He was crying and nobody could comfort him. One student asked his Rebbe, "Why do you cry? You were almost as wise as Moses and as kind as Abraham." Reb Zusha answered, "When I pass from this world and appear before the heavenly tribunal, they won't ask me, 'Zusha, why weren't you as wise as Moses or as kind as Abraham?' Rather, they will ask me, 'Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? Why didn't I fulfill my potential? Why didn't I follow the path that could have been mine?'" IWOW has been a way station on the path. In this building, I learned to outgrow my childlike smallness and frailty. I drank my milk and grew big and strong, but not so big that I took up more than my share of space, and not so strong that my voice drowned out the remarkable voices of my IWOW compatriots. I learned to introduce comedy to tragedy and watch them skipping hand in hand down Front Street, sometimes joined by their shy little friend, Sentimentality, reciting nursery rhymes and singing dirges. And this is not an optical illusion. This is as real as it gets. I can tell you that I will carry you with me on my back and in my belly on my way out this door, and I will not forget.
The next person's taller than me, so. Thanks again, Susie. Oh, it's just that, like, hitting it right in the right spot for all of us. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to introduce the steward of this next iteration of this place, the Center for Peace Through Culture. I welcome Andreas Engle to the stage.
Sure, yeah.
Is anyone parked in the driveway just up the block here, just up the street here? There's a driveway in the next house.
I think it's a Range Rover. I'm not sure.
Whoever lives there can't get out if anyone's here.
But it's not like in front of the garage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's parked in front of the Thank you. Sorry.
Wow. Denise, I think you were the first person I met from this IWOW group. So it's Susie, Denise, Susie. Thank you. You were the first person I think I met from this group. Yeah, and I just want to make a little note about what you said about the stage, about the size of the stage, because I don't know this place as well as most of you do. But I've always made the reference to Snoopy's doghouse, that it's Snoopy's doghouse is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And that's exactly how I feel. It just, coming in here, it's just that things are so big in here. It's so bigger than the outside, bigger than the frame. So I believe the stage is, 5 feet higher or whatever the size is. This is an excerpt from my journal. I modified something from my personal journal for this, and it's called The Gift. The Gift. Jerry owned a dry cleaning business in New York City's West Side. I met him at a nearby place I frequented in the 90s called the Art Bar. In those days, the place would fill with aspirational artistic types, actors, stand-up comics, filmmakers, musicians, writers. A mural painted on a dimly lit wall suggested as much. A core group of us would hang out there way after closing hours, until daybreak, sustaining an ambient conversational fog, morphing through trivial conversation and animated debate. Jerry was short in stature, and he wore a flat-top cap and a scrub-like shirt that might have been his work uniform. He would generally show up late, oftentimes with his loyal pit bull mixed dog, who would sit next to him atop a stool at the bar. On nights when they got there before the kitchen closed, the bartender would set a beer and a burger in front of Jerry, and a burger with no bun in front of the dog, and the two would eat there reverently, with onlookers nodding approval from the distance. On one particular night, Jerry came in, this time without his dog. And seeing me alone, he sat next to me. He ordered a beer, turned to me, and in a commanding, sing-song voice recited, "When the despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the place of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free." The waft of alcohol in his breath wasn't from the scant few sips that he just took, I supposed. "Wendell Berry," he said casually, as if I should know. Jerry went on like this for a good while, one poem after the next. It was impressive, and I listened. I decided I was meant, for whatever reason, to be his audience. After exhausting his repertoire, he finally turned things to me. "Your turn," he commanded. I didn't have the recall or his facility to recite on demand, but I also didn't want to feel small, irrelevant, or to disappoint him. "I write my own, actually," I said feebly. "I fill notebooks with them, lyrics for songs, actually." Jerry got excited. I had never before witnessed such unbridled anticipation for spoken poetry. It was a little jarring, actually. Spoken poetry, in my mind, was for dry, coffee-infused bookish circles where people pretend to listen and exchange subtle, knowing nods. "I'm listening," Jerry demanded, dispelling my illusion. "They're for my personal journal," I choked. "I don't really share them. They're private, loose ideas, scribbles half-baked. Maybe I'll share some at some point." Jerry might have been drunk, but he was quite sober in thought. He looked at me hard and long. "Do you know," he said, "that there are people, lots of people," he swept his arm to suggest those people were in our very midst, "that desperately want to write. They try, they go to school for it, they read, they study, and after all of it, they stare at a blank page." He leaned into me for emphasis. "And you are just doing it. You have a gift." Jerry's face twisted a bit, almost as if he had been physically injured. "And you keep it for yourself, while it is a treasure to others. Gifts are meant to be shared." That night, Jerry, the New York City dry cleaner owner, was ushered into a cab ordered by a bartender and sent off to who knows where. I never saw him again. And now, decades later, Jerry's scolding words haunt me still. So for you, I start with something from Henry David Thoreau. My life has been the poem I would have writ, but I could not both live and utter it.
Thank you so much. Okay, and last on my hosting, I get to introduce another IWOW staple. Welcome, please, Steve Mole.
All right, thank you very much. I'm always happy to be here and happy to listen to everyone's stories. And so peace through culture, of the heart, no, of the voice and from the heart or something. Anyway, this song is called Just Peace. And I was writing the song and I said, well, I can't really write it just for myself. And so I wrote this with the children of Haiti in mind when that tsunami hit. So it's called Just Peace. Give me peace, give me hope, give me one star to dream on, give me love, give me kindness, one hand to hold on to. Is it too much to ask for just a little kindness? Is it too much to ask for just a little hope? Is it too much to ask for just one hand to hold? Give me a chance, give me a start. Show me all the roads to walk on. Give me comfort and give me strength when the road is long and rocky. Give me laughter, give me a smile, give me a shoulder to cry on. Show me honesty, show me truth, show me the right road to travel. Is it too much to ask for just a little kindness? Is it too much to ask for just a little hope? Is it too much to ask for just one hand to hold? Give me peace, give me hope, give me one star to dream on. Give me love and kindness, one hand to hold on to. Is it too much to ask for just a little hope? Is it too much to ask for just a little love? Is it too much to ask for just one hand to hold? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
In order to create this book, it needed a little intro, and that's what I'll be reading for you. See if it goes anywhere. I gave birth to my only daughter when I was 39. Before that, I had been busy raising 2 stepdaughters, raising myself, handling marriage, a crazy career in advertising, and sadly recovering from 2 miscarriages. So I was what you call an older mommy. An older mommy that, by the way, had years of therapy under her ever-expanding belt. So by the time I delivered, I knew what I didn't want to repeat from my own upbringing. And one of those things was nagging. Do this. Don't do this. Do this or you'll die. Don't do this or you'll die. Either way, you will die. I was raised on fears, and fears with like a side of worry and anxiety. So I had spent 39 years crawling out of that. I had rebelled, and I would damn well enjoy a few things like traveling alone, swimming naked, going to foreign countries, eating sushi, and talking to an occasional stranger. I didn't want to bring that truckload of fears to my child. I wanted to be a great mom. Who doesn't? I wanted her to love and enjoy me, not run away from my screeching, scolding voice. I wanted her to kind of learn her own way, find her own people, find her own interests, learn what she liked. What was I thinking? Aren't parents there to set limits, annoy you, teach you what they've already learned? Isn't it their job to tell you what's good for you, whether you like it or not? Like to tell you, I'm cold, wear a sweater. Meanwhile, she loved running around without a jacket. And I always figured she'd come back when she got cold. That's how you learn. Not so fast. She'd come back when she had icicles dripping from her nose. So, of course, I did offer the normal worries and warnings that keep you alive. Those came naturally. No fingers in electric sockets. Please chew your food. Don't go to the water without an adult. Don't be out of my sight for 1 second. Not in Walmart, not in ShopRite, not in New York City. And don't let those elevator doors close before I'm inside with you. But I decided, unlike my parents, not to nag her about who to talk to, who to be friends with, what clothes to wear, who to marry. I didn't explain things like banking or Social Security, World War II, or why you should get 8 hours of sleep. She'd find her way, right? No nagging. She'd ask when she needed help, right? Well, maybe it was the day she told me she hadn't pooped in a week. Perhaps it was time to discuss the need for fiber in her diet. Or was it the time she went camping with her 7th grade class and slept in her wet clothes for 3 days? She came home sick. Apparently, I had been a little too lax in the basics. Was it time to have the talk about how your body needs vitamin C? Or how to say no when your friends have a dumb idea? Oh yes, it was long past that time. I knew it. And I had run out of time. She was heading off to college. Had I explained yet how to flat pack your suitcase? How to shop for bargains? How to ride the subway and avoid crazy people? In fact, by the way, just act crazier than them. They'll leave you alone every time. Hey, in my life, I had been pushed, scolded, and lectured to. And I didn't want to add that to her life. I didn't want pressure and goals and expectations on her. I hoped to let life flow and teach her what she was interested in. She, by the way, is pretty happy about all that, and she turned out amazing. But she may still need to know about adding fiber to her diet. That's easy. She may still know how to save part of her paycheck. You put it in a separate account, and you don't touch it. She may need to know about applying for a job you're not really qualified for. Sheer chutzpah usually works. Balancing your checkbook. Oh, that's right, she's a millennial. She doesn't even have one. But in an effort to helpfully guide my daughter, and perhaps someone else's, through the maze of life, I'm offering a book full of the things I forgot to tell her. In a perfect world, I would have told her all of this a long time ago. But it's not a perfect world, and I am sure as heck not a perfect mom.
As I said, very skillful. Very nice. Sounds like a book to me. So I met this next performer here at IWOW, and he was reading a story about the Army, and I thought, I've been in the Army. Maybe I can do that too. Larry Zingale is a prolific artist, a writer, my good friend, and a real support. A fellow Paisan. Please welcome him, Larry Zingale.
Can you hear me with this goddamn mask? No. My God. I have a friend who's in very fragile health. And she made me promise that I would wear the mask even when I'm speaking. So I hope you can hear me. Okay. So let's start off with a poem by a 3-year-old. I'm short, you're tall, that's all. Okay. Another poem by a 3-year-old. The cat ate the rat, the cat got fat, that was that. Poem by an old man. Talk is cheap, love is expensive. Poem from an old man. She lay across my bed in naked grace with chocolate smears across her face. And now one last poem. This is called White Paint. Smith retired at 65, thin, bald, bent, barely alive. The men at the winery said Smith must go at 65. The rule was no fool. Smith went bent to the John and cried, tried to hide. No more bottles tinkling down the line, labels left unstuck. Smith, you're out of luck. Smith, you're 65, barely alive. On the last day, the golden watch of 50 years was pinned on Smith with flair, and men with black lapels and foul eyes clapped like purple thunder. This is it, Smith. You're on stage. You got your watch and Medicare. So long. It's been good to know you. The boss preened his feathers and spoke, and now the bonus, Smith, a little surprise from all the guys. A bottle of wine, old fellow, the best we've got, Rosé Mellow, vintage 50 years. A year for every year we had you. Smith got home that night and was afraid. His dues were paid, but he had no one to play with. Never had a wife, never had a life, never even had a gleam in his eye. Born ugly, pretty dumb, royal pain, favorite heroes John Wayne, you know the type. So the years blew past while Smitty sat in the cat piss smell of ancient dusty furniture, polishing the golden watch of 50 years, waiting for the celebration day to drink the wine of Rosé Mellow. But he had no one to play with, He was 83, could barely see. Sitting old and bold on the ref TV was Wine of Rosé Mellow, silently as John Wayne killed the bad guys. Smith sat by the third floor window, toothaches, bones creaking in the damp, pearl-smooth pills so hard to swallow, polishing the golden watch, falling asleep by the third floor window, bodies below drifting by through a yellowed curtain lace. And Smith dreaming of 50 years ago, in open fields, thinking himself handsome, kissing winning pretty girl Agnes, the only girl, pretty girl Agnes in a pale blue dress. And then waking up slow and groggy, his brain foggy, rosy, mellow on the rec TV, catching the afternoon sunlight, waiting for the celebration day. But he had no one to play with, never could make friends he didn't like to trust. Pretty girl Agnes in her pale blue dress came back on a cold winter day through the third floor window light, Smith sitting wrapped in army blankets, vintage World War II. "Come with me," she said. Smith went and then was dead. In a few days, he stunk so bad the police were called and had, and Smith was boxed and buried. The place was sprayed to clear away the cat piss smells. Sign put up, room for rent. 2 painters came early 7 in the morning with steaming coffee. First thing they saw, sitting dusty on the rec TV, was Wine of Rosé Mellow. So they drank it, got drunk, and went to work, and Smith's life disappeared under a coat of white paint. Thank you. So Frankie's next, and he's going to read from his book, The Mercury Man. And if you haven't read it, I thoroughly suggest that you do. This is not a lie. I've read it 3 times. Little bits now and then before I go to sleep. They're all short stories, 2 or 3 pages long. And they're beautifully written, so let's hear one of them now from our good friend Frank.
Now I'm going to read. This is wonderful. You're in charge. You're the host. So, if you folks have been at IWOW the last few months, you may have heard me say I'm reading my book backwards, which I've been doing. And the story that came up this month was a little too heavy, and I chose not to read it. And in fact, I've never read it out loud, and I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to read a story called Playland, or Land of Play. It's a little sexual innuendo kind of a story. There must have been close to 20 of us on the train, mostly Halsey bops, the guys and girls who hung out in the park, the A train to the Rockaways, the beach at 96th Street, where we went swimming during the day and walked under the massive grinning clown of the now long-gone Playland at night. The guys wearing paisley print button-downs and the girls in pedal pushers and one-piece swimsuits. Where me and the gang walked the boardwalk looking to throw a punch, or ran around on the sand throwing a football. Little Frankie was on that train, and so were Vicky and Gina. The first trip of summer to the ocean. Frankie was good people, and we were close. We played basketball for 14 Holy Martyrs, and after games we would go to his house, smoke pot, and listen to Elvis and the Platters. I was surprised to see Vicky and Gina, though. They were older and usually drove around in Gina's white caddy with the top down. They were together as usual, their hair teased to the heavens, eyes outlined in mascara and purple shadow, wearing skimpy tops and white short shorts that had been rolled up to the V of their thighs. Not a tan line in sight, testifying to the fact that they spent their days on the rooftops across from the playground, worshiping the sun gods. We had barely settled into our seats, carrying our coolers and blankets, when Gina got up, smiled at Frankie, whispered in his ear, and the two of them walked to the other end of the subway car. I guess she had a plan because they slid into one of those private seating areas at the end of the car, and they stayed in that cubbyhole for over an hour, making out and who knows what else. Didn't show themselves again until we got to Rockaway. Little Frankie had a smile a mile wide. Gina didn't look too shabby either. On the beach, we smoked some grass, drank a few beers, and soaked up the sun. At twilight, we walked over to Playland to check out the rides. I wasn't feeling any pain, and I got on the line for the Ferris wheel. I was afraid of heights, so normally I would have just gone on the bumper cars. Lots of fun, but not what you would call risky. As the line got shorter, I started to have second thoughts. When I looked up, me and Vicky were next, so I went for it. I couldn't let her see that I was afraid. When we reached the top, probably 100 feet from the ground, I held on tight to the lap bar and tried not to scream. Just sat still, closed my eyes, and waited for it to end. When I felt Vicky's hand over mine, I started to relax. I always appreciated that she never brought it up or told anyone. On the subway ride home, it didn't take long for Gina to get everyone's attention. She was holding on to one of the train's center poles, rubbing herself against it. I guessed she had taken a few substances herself, because then she points and says, "Hear me out, people. I'll buy a 3-piece suit for the first guy who goes down on me." Looking around with her sexy smile, while Vicky laughed. "That's right, you heard me, a 3-piece suit." In the late 50s, a 3-piece suit, which included a vest, was one of the hippest styles in men's fashion. Jackie, one of the older guys, spoke up right away. "Hey, Gina, just say the word, and I'll eat you out wherever you're ready, babe. And you can ask around. I don't come up until I look like a frosted donut." On the train, people couldn't stop talking about whether they were serious. I mean, everyone knew Gina was outrageous, but Jackie was a drug addict. He shot a couple of bags of dope every day, so you couldn't be sure with him. Still, he had a steady job, working the dining room at Red's Bakery and Pizzeria, during the week as a waiter, and as the maitre d' on weekends. A couple of weeks later, me and little Frankie showed up at Red's on a Saturday night. Jackie greeted us at the door with a big smile, done up in a silk tie with a pocket square placed just so, wearing a brand new gray pinstriped 3-piece suit.
Slice of life, Frankie. Is Paul here, Paul Solovay? Poor guy. There he is, right there in the jacket. Paul's there. Let's give him a hand. Paul Solovay.
How do you drive this thing? So, I think this is my first essay, inspired by Susan. So I thought about a perfect world. Oh, thank you. Now it's more perfect. I used to have perfect eyes, but here we go. In a perfect world, I would be bored to tears. The homogeneity would be suffocating. Perfection may be a goal in the abstract, but if achieved, everything after that is sameness and ultimately pointless. The greatest novels would not exist. Could there be peace without war? What would Tolstoy write about? There would be existence without struggle. Without struggle, there's no heroic possibilities. Boring, dull, tepid at best. In 1918, a 24-cent airmail stamp comes out of the U.S. Mint. 100 of them featuring a biplane image are printed before someone notices that the biplane is upside down. Stop the presses. Today, if you can find one of these imperfect stamps, it's worth $1.5 million. If it's right side up, it's worth 24 cents. I'll take the 1.5 million, wouldn't you? You see, imperfection is valued. In art, this is also true. Duchamp's nude descending a staircase was first ridiculed even by his fellow cubists. That was in 1913. Today, it resides in the Philadelphia Museum of Fine Art as a rightful masterpiece. I guess perfection is in the eye of the beholder. Whose eye? Da Vinci's Mona Lisa isn't hailed for having a perfect smile, but one filled with mystery, mirth, perhaps even irony. It subtly insinuates different things to different viewers. It fucks with your head. I posit that perfection can be characterized as accepted mass conformity in the guise of ultimate virtue. The Bible tells us that the Garden of Eden was perfection here on earth. Look where that little tale got us. Now, I am not arguing for mediocrity or slipshod work. Far from it. You don't have to be obsessive-compulsive to pursue perfection. The journey has its twists and turns. You make self-discoveries along the way. But if you ever find yourself at perfection's door, enter with your eyes wide open. It can drain your innovation, motivation, and self-determination. In a world where perfection rules, you're ruled by it. Creativity becomes a one-way street, and you dare not go in the opposite direction. I'm thinking of Soviet dissident artists. Perfection can lead to unanticipated consequences, even a dictatorial hierarchy. So be careful what you wish for.
Beautifully written, Paul. Our next performer is Sonia Pilcer. She's a wonderful writer and a wonderful teacher. I've read all her books and I thoroughly love them. And she's a terrific teacher. She taught me a lot about writing. Sonia Pilcer, it's all yours.
This is a little low. Well, you know, I'd rather, if you, could you raise it for me because I have my papers? I thought this would be a very solemn occasion because we're losing our Susie and Frank, my very good friends, but this is not. I have a new passion that I want to share with you. Doris Schiff and I were best friends. She lived across 161st Street. An only child, she received gifts that I could only imagine. A Patsy Play Pal. Does anyone remember this life-size doll? She could go anywhere with you, be your sister, confidant, never to be lonely again. I begged for Patsy to deaf ears and empty arms. But what I wanted most, and was out of reach, a different planet where families went to Broadway shows and concerts and ballet, was a piano. Doris had a shiny black piano. The teacher came to her apartment and gave her weekly lessons. Doris couldn't have cared less, but I would come over afterwards and study her books. I taught myself a few songs by the finger numbering, 5-3-1-2, 5-3-1-2. My mother had wanted to play piano too. She told me about a rich, cultured friend in Lodz, Poland. They would go to concerts together. Oh, how she loved her Chopin and Schubert. But as new immigrants in a cramped Washington Heights apartment, a piano was beyond us. In 2000, we moved from a modest house to a large one right down our road, the opposite of downsizing. Our hacienda came with a full downstairs apartment. One day I was sitting there staring at a space that was now vacant. We had turned a dining room table into a ping pong table and moved it. There was room for a yes. I saw it right there in my mind's eye. My birthday was coming up, and I went online and ordered a full Casio keyboard. It arrived 2 days later. Imagine having your impossible dream come true that fast. I had a teacher lined up, the jazz musician husband of a friend, who helped me set up and get started. I've studied with 2 teachers since. I practice at least an hour a day. I've learned to sight read. To me, it's an amazement, a miracle, to pick up a sheet and play a melody with 2 hands. I don't even look down at my fingers. It's like touch typing. I've been given a way, a path, an intimacy into music. I'm learning a language, not easy for someone my age who forgets or can't remember. It forces concentration and single task focus. It's challenging the hell out of me, but I'm on a path. Sometimes my fingers know more than I do. And is there anything cooler than fulfilling a childhood fantasy?
It's a wonderful story. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Larry. You were great, man. Don't forget, email Denise if you wish to host. It's a nice job, you know, you're in charge, you get to be up here, you know. By the way, I wanted to mention, you guys know Susie and I are moving, and I have some art and some beautiful books that I put on the table by the door. Please help yourself. Something to remember us by. And we have to get rid of them. I got the list of who was going to perform tonight, and next to our next performer's name it said, doesn't know what she's doing yet. And I thought, how can you do that? I mean, I would be beside myself. I know for days what I'm going to do, you know. And so I'm not sure what she's going to do yet, but I do know that she's multi-talented, and she sings, and she tells stories. Please welcome Maggie Mitchell.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I can adjust that a little, because I'm not short. So it's funny, I never know what I'm going to do until really the day I get here. And today I forgot about voting and came here and was like, oh no, I've got to go vote. So I missed the first half. So this was kind of a perfect theme for me right now. I was actually going to sing a song, but in a perfect world, I would have someone to accompany me. So I'm going to work on this with a friend and shoot for next month instead. I still love to sing a cappella. However, I was recently diagnosed with a hearing issue, a problem which started about a month ago with a low humming in my left ear. Really annoying, and I get this weird internal reverb when I do sing. It's kind of hard to describe. I finally got in to see my ear, nose, throat guy last week, and he says it's Meniere's disease. But I'm not sure I'm in agreement with him, so I'll continue to explore some other possibilities. And in a perfect world, there would be no disease. This has been a very tough year for me with several minor health issues, and it seems as though every time I turn around, it's something else. It started back in March with a pain in my foot. I thought this was pretty bizarre. Every once in a while, I would get a sharp stabbing pain in the heel area of my left foot. And usually this would happen when I wasn't doing anything, perhaps sitting or just lying on the couch. My initial way of dealing with these things is to ignore them and hope that my body heals itself and the symptoms go away. And of course, this is what happens in a perfect world. But these symptoms did not go away, and they ultimately became more frequent and insistent. So I finally called my MD. Well, truthfully, I Googled the symptoms first. So I had a pretty good idea of what it was when I went in for the actual medical diagnosis of plantar fasciitis. So I got my prescription to start physical therapy. And in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to wait 3 months or win the lottery just to see someone for physical therapy. But that is a whole other story, and I'm not going to go there right now. So I'm still working on fixing the plantar fasciitis and starting up another round of physical therapy next week, and hopefully correcting that problem for good. Still have the ear thing that I'm working on. And around the same time, my foot problem started, I noticed a problem with my eye, a weird distortion in the central vision of my right eye, where items would actually seem to disappear. And it had been a few years since I had had my eyes checked, and perhaps things were getting a bit blurrier, but this felt like something out of the Matrix. I was thankful that I could get in to see my ophthalmologist right away, and it turns out I had a hole in my retina, something called a macular hole. Yeah. This sounds pretty scary and somewhat rare, and of course no one knows why this happens, but fortunately it could be corrected with surgery, a procedure called a vitrectomy. They wanted to do this while I was awake, and the surgeon said, of course we would numb the eye first so you don't feel anything, and I almost laughed out loud. I told the surgeon she would definitely need to numb my brain to go along with that, so... So I opted for general anesthesia instead. And I'd also like to add that the recovery process for this procedure was a bit like torture, but in a perfect world, the body would heal itself and we wouldn't need surgeons or surgery, and perhaps healing guides instead. 5 months later, the distortion in my eye is gone. However, apparently this procedure can also cause cataracts to advance. And so things are still very blurry. So another surgery is in my not too distant future. I guess health-wise, I've been pretty up until this past year. Now I feel like I'm falling apart at the seams. But I guess ultimately these are minor annoyances. And in a perfect world, there would be no aches and pains, and aging would be easy and occur gracefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. You're on. Not yet, but you're on. You're on the list. Yeah. Now you know.
All right.
See? When you stand up here, you're in charge. It's like, it's like the boss.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, did Joanne Spees make it? Is she around? No. She didn't. All right, we're scratching her off the list. So, the next person up, I met in an acting class many years ago, and we've remained friends, which is really a very nice thing for me. She's a writer, an actor, and a poet, and she was an early supporter of my work. Please welcome a longtime close friend, Padme Lake.
Thank you, Frankie. And thank you, everybody. Is this picking me up? Okay. This poem is called Prophecy. And don't worry if it makes sense or not. Okay. A 1,000 children die each day. The one who lives, they say, great noble good surrounds him. The breath of angels protects him. The dragon he slays will be his own father, and the beast he weds will be his mother. The village of idiots will burn, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil will take out a second mortgage as crops fail and people consume each other or starve, and the chosen one wrestles with the legions of the damned to save your wasted, anemic soul. Discouraging stuff. Do not despair, however. There is more. He will play strip poker on Mount Olympus and dance naked in defeat, wearing only the golden fleece, as a Dixieland band wails in the background. He will fall madly in love with the Minotaur as Ariadne weaves a couch the three of them fall upon, celebrating an hieroskamos of unusual hilarity. The golem will hunt him and shoot him full of arrows and hang him from a tree and beat him with sticks until he breaks open and the next world falls out of him, along with the sweets, the guavas, and the peanuts. He will, they say, be worthy of his inheritance. I'm not so sure. He's enjoying this far too much. This living and dying and living again. he has forgotten, he says, his original purpose. And his inheritance is up for sale. Thank you. Very nice, Padme. That was so nice. Good girl. So, thank you, Frankie. I've never actually been a co-host here, so this is kind of fun to be asked, and not really thrilled about the occasion, but you know, we'll get along. Is Gregory Simpson here? No? Okay. All right. Ronnie Cunningham. Ronnie? Oh, Ronnie, come on down. Ronnie. A beautiful storyteller. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't mind if I sit. In a perfect world, I would have remembered my complete story last month. So I'd like to give you a few vignettes, and then I will continue it. I have been a greeter at Tanglewood for many years, and at the Lion's Gate. And because of COVID, there are sometimes a feeling of lack. And at the opening concert this year, a woman came through the gate, and she looked at me and said, "Ronnie, you are here. Now my summer can begin." I have greeted a little gap-mouthed little boy with this broad smile 4 times. The second time, his mother said to me, "You are amongst his favorite people." And last night, he came to the big Beatles thing, and he shook my hand and said, "I'll see you next year." Then, a few weeks ago, a man came through, and I had greeted him, and he'd come through with a family. And he said, "Will you do something for me?" Well, you know, I try not to answer that question directly because it could lead to unforeseen consequences. So I just smiled. "Will you greet my father?" And I looked at the father and I said, "Welcome to Tanglewood, sir." And he was over the moon. Now what had I done? I just greeted him with a big smile. And then I'm now, someone came through and said, "Ronnie, every time you greet me, I feel as though I've been invited to Downton Abbey." Now, I'm going to continue with the story. I was talking about a couple that 9 years ago had been at a Bryn Terfel concert at Ozawa Hall, as I had been, wearing my Welsh Dragon t-shirt and covered with my Welsh flag. And it was a wonderful concert. And they were talking about it when they came through the gate. And I asked them what they had enjoyed the most. The encore. Now, how many concerts do you go to where you ask somebody what they had enjoyed the most, and they say the encore? Well, it turns out that the encore was songs from around the British Isles, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. And I said to them, "Well, I've known the one from England since I was a little girl. Would you like me to sing it to you?" And I did, as I sang it to you last month. And so they saw me sitting on the green benches at the back of the hall, and they came up to me and said, "Thank you for singing to us." And then they came through again on Sunday afternoon. We'll never forget that you sang to us. Well, they always came the third week of August. Their habit was to go to Tanglewood, Jacob's Pillow, and come back to Tanglewood on Sunday afternoon. And I haven't seen them for a number of years. And part of me hadn't expected to. Then, that Sunday afternoon, they came through the gate. And she came up to me and gave me a hug. You sang to us. Thank you. And of course, it was Zingale that I got the name of.
Thank you, Ronnie. That was glorious. Amelia Sydlosky, storyteller, raconteur. Come on up.
Who knew? I didn't know. I didn't know I was on tonight. I was hoping I would be, but of course, you know. But here I am, and it's good to see everyone and to be here. So what I was thinking about is perfect world. I was thinking I was just in my, let's see, late 20s, and I'm in New York City, West Village. And I had a little company called Women Can Do, and we painted apartments and did restoration and plastering and stuff, and self-taught. But I'd do anything anyone asked me to do, and I'd say, of course I can do it. So, and I ended up doing really well. And this was kind of one of the magic days of my life. I had an answering service because no one had an answering machine on their phones then. So I called them, and I got a message from a famous producer who had 19 rooms over Central Park, and I should come up and give him an estimate. So I figured, oh, that's good stuff. And then I got a message from Playboy magazine, and they wanted a picture of us on the scaffolding and what have you, and then a tasteful nude in the studio. So that was a kind of, okay, where are we here? You know, something to think about, yes? So I said, I'd get back to you. And so anyway, I get on the subway. I go to the subway and I go downstairs, and I'm standing there, and this lovely young man comes over to me. He's from either Iran, Iraq, or Syria, one of those countries. He had a student visa. He had dropped out of school, so he's going to lose his visa and be deported back to wherever he was from. Would I marry him? Hey, you don't get that every day. You know, even those people you know. So I thought, well, hey, and he didn't make it very interesting, you know, from my point of view. He was getting bailed out, but I didn't know what my story, but, you know, I was getting. So I thought, all right, let me think about it, you know, and as I'm getting on the train, before the doors are closing, he says, oh, by the way, would you get your blood test? So anyway, I leave him, and up I go, and I got this. What they wanted me is, they wanted to sell the 19 rooms over Central Park, right? And they had these lovely big windows that looked over Central Park, but they had all this alligator cracking over the hot and cold over the many years. So they wanted me to like restore it. Could I do that? Of course. I say yes to everything. So what you do is you fill the cracks, then you prime it, and then you paint it. But the room was this mushroom color, and I had to, you know, really make it perfect. So I mixed the paint, and I get everything going, and who knew how to mix paint, but I figured it out, and I paint them up, and they were a perfect color. The next day when I come back, they're not a perfect color anymore. They're all lighter. And I'm saying, like, what happened here? You know, what yesterday was, today it ain't? So I thought about it, and I realized one thing that was missing. Dirt. So I painted them all again, and I took my dirty sponge, and I smeared it down on the paint, the wet paint, and when it dried, it was perfect. Now, I couldn't tell them what I did because they were meticulous, and in fact, everything was like perfect. But I knew what I did, and they were very happy with what I did. So I wanted to leave them with that. And then they gave me other rooms to paint and money, and then I did the master bedroom, which was molding within molding within molding. And she dared me, would I be able to do it? And of course, I could do it. You had to do a straight edge. You had to, like, steady-handed and not blur it at all. I did a great job. I really did. I did. And then once you do that, and I also restored some plaster that was damaged. So anyway, we get everything done. We have everything packed up. It's in the car, and I'm ready to leave. And my friend comes over to me and says to me, you'll never. There was a piece of molding this big on the bottom that I hadn't painted. I missed it. Could happen. You get one after another, you get a little dizzy, missed that piece. So I said to her, Joan, you know in the Chinese, when they do these balls within balls within balls and the intricacy and all of that, they always leave one imperfection to let the gods know that they are mortal and not perfect. Let's get out of here.
So, Eric and Francine were going to close us out here tonight, and Eric and Francine are just not here. So I wonder, Susie had this great idea, I wonder if Steve would grace us again. And play a little music to close it out here. If anyone, while Steve's getting his instrument, does anyone have an announcement or anything they want to say? Draw on the wall. Andreas wants you to draw on the wall, so please do that. I want you to take books, so please do that. Yes, ma'am. We have some non-pot brownies.
And I also have some info on, I'm offering a creative festival and my home starting up in a few weeks. So if anybody's interested, just come see me.
And I would just like to say one last thing. Thank you. Thank you to all the performers. Thank you to everyone who supported us. In a perfect world, Deb would be sitting over there.
My hope? Whisper of hope? Okay, I have a request. I don't know if I can. That song's got a lot of different chords in it. Right? No, that's okay. Let me. It's not a sing. It's not a sing along. Let's see. So this is called Whisper of Hope. I think this is the right key. There's a moon out tonight, looking for two lovers to wish upon his shining light. Yes, that's all he needs to help him on his way, is a whisper of hope for a peaceful day. You don't need no diamond rings, you don't need no fancy things, sure don't need a set of brand new threads. Well, all he needs, all he needs, all he needs is a whisper of hope, a whisper of hope, a whisper of hope to see him through. Yes, he's floating there on a big white cloud, looking down on you and me, and he's wondering what we must be thinking. We're not treating each other like sister and brother. Well, all he needs, all he needs, all he needs is a whisper of hope, a whisper of hope, a whisper of hope to see him through. So when you're looking up at that marshmallow moon, just imagine you're at peace. And when you're looking up at that silent moon, just imagine the world at peace. All he needs, all he needs, all he needs is a whisper of hope, a whisper of hope, whisper of hope to see him through. There's a moon out tonight, looking for two lovers to wish upon his shining light. Yes, that's all he needs to help him on his way, is a whisper of hope for a peaceful day. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you.